opportunities in those countries, people are going away. Uh, this particular, these are our suggestions.
Adil,
Yes.
we need to conclude this in a few minutes, if you can.
Yeah, sure. I will take only 3 minutes. So what we are talking in this paper, that there need to be a smaller structure, small body of establishment, which will connect all these countries. And this like structural body, which will be their office organization, you call it, they will only define some framework, processes, and procedure and legal support for this Khwarizmi Ibn Sina knowledge corridor, but they will not be involved between the universities' involvement with each other. Our proposal is if on the Kamoz Mayas University wants to connect with Al Farabi University in Kazakhstan, they should be autonomous. There should be some procedures, there should be some like framework, but they should be doing intradisciplinary research, electrical department talking to electrical department. Interdisciplinary research, livestock department people are talking to solve some computer vision problem. And then they should be focused on the product development. And also in the later phase, they need to be focused on the dual degree programs. As I said, the funding problems are there in this region, but funding will be automatically solved if the creativity is there. We need to solve. Honorable Ambassador, I would request you and some other friends later on that we need to highlight this issue of mobility of researchers. We need to make their mobility within the region easier. English language is a common problem because there need to be a common language within this region so that they can easily communicate and do the scientific research. And lastly, this is not a idea which we are just presenting this paper. Last year, my friends Mia Sajjad, Yasser Qureshi, who are present on this call, we all basically came to Turkey trying to understand Turkey and build the Pakistan-Turkey Dostluk connectivity. Based on that, our visit of last year, we were able to connect on the Kamoz Mayas University and the Ghulam Ishaq Khan University, which is a top-ranked university in Pakistan for engineering. We helped them sign the MOU, and we are very glad that a couple of initiatives, a couple of projects have already started between these universities, and those are interdisciplinary research, like the livestock and also the agriculture department of OMU is connecting to the electrical department. Our proposal is we need to expand to the 12 countries. We need to build a corridor. I need to highlight my friend Niso, who's on the call from Uzbekistan. She supported us a lot for this initiative. And for this paper, I have spoken to people in Kazakhstan, some people in Michigan.
Adil, I think we got the message. Can you just conclude, if you don't mind?
Last 5 seconds is we will be working for this initiative and make it happen. This is not a paper. This is actually a mission for all of our friends. And in the next papers, we will try to highlight the funding issues and future aspect of the paper. I thank you all for the opportunity.
Adil, thank you very much for this innovative proposal, I would say. I completely agree with you that there should be more, I think, coordination and cooperation among the universities from different parts of the world. And as you have said, like Erasmus exchange program, there should be an exchange program within the countries that you have just mentioned as the knowledge corridor. Of course, your paper raised a number of questions in my mind about the main mission of the universities, higher education institutions. You were emphasizing that they should do something good for the society, problem-solving initiatives that they need to engage. Of course, this is the main priority. But what we know that I think universities are departing from their traditional missions, like commercialization, privatization. And as you know now, there is a monopoly and hegemony on knowledge. We see more commercialization of the universities. This is one challenge that maybe also you can highlight later on in your papers. But I think you have touched on very useful issues. Thank you very much for your proposal and for your ideas. Now, we move to another paper. The title is The Role of Higher Education in Poverty Reduction and Income Inequality Mitigation. Again, I think this is one of the important missions of the university. Universities should touch on the lives of ordinary people. That paper has been written by 3 authors, Dr. Kristina Velichkovska, Dilsa Bilali, and Edita Mustafa. And I would like to invite, I think it was Edita to present the paper. Is that right? Am I right?
Yes, I will be presenting the paper on behalf of my colleagues as well.
Okay. Okay, Edita, floor is yours, and you've got 15 minutes, okay?
Thank you. I will just be sharing my screen. Can you all see the screen right now?
Yes, perfectly. Yes.
Okay, so first of all, I would like to congratulate the organizers for this event. It's a pleasure to be a part of this event. I am Edita Mustafa from Skopje, North Macedonia. I'm a teaching assistant in International Balkan University, as well as my two other colleagues, Assistant Professor Dr. Kristina Velichovska, and my other colleague, which is PhD candidate Dilsa Bilali. We have come together to put up a research paper, a research regarding the role of higher education in poverty reduction and income inequality. Basically, we're going to provide with empirical evidence on how higher education has a role to alleviate poverty and to try and mitigate income inequality across European countries. To put up together this research, we have used secondary data from the World Bank. And we're going to present how higher education enrollment ratio impacts key economic indicators like the poverty headcount ratios, the GDP per capita, and the income inequality, which is measured in our case by the Gini index. Starting with our literature review of, we have taken our basically our idea to put up with this research as there are different views on the role of higher education for these two indicators. Older findings show that individuals who have completed higher education have scored higher ranks of life satisfaction, basically, since it is expected that higher education will give individuals skills and productive knowledge, increasing their productivity, earnings, and as a benefit to reduce poverty. This finding was also proved in 2022. Later research made shows that basically efforts should focus more on equalizing access to quality education in order to address income inequality. Basically, it is as an evidence, it's shown that unequal opportunities for education leads to higher income inequality and poverty. Basically, we need to address, according to this finding, we need to address educational opportunities to improve income inequality and poverty as well. Most recent studies tell that education reduces income inequality and poverty in the short run. Also, education, basically a different aspect, more recent, shows that education tends to worsen inequality in high and low income countries, while in countries which are known as middle income, it helps to reduce the income inequality. So we can see different aspects on how education basically affects the income inequality and the poverty. After the reviewed literature, after seeing different aspects on our topic, we have decided to make our own research through the model of ordinary least square, using also the fixed and random effects model, in order so we can see the effects more accurately. Lastly, the Haussmann test was conducted for each regression, so we can see that which model is most appropriate in each case. We have determined 3 models. So the first model examines the relationship between higher education enrollment and the Gini index. The second model assesses the impact of higher education on GDP per capita. The third model investigates the effect on poverty headcount ratio. As I mentioned, both fixed and random effects models were used to see the most appropriate model. Our research is focused on basically 40 countries of Europe, including Albania, Austria, Belarus, Belgium, Bosnia, until Switzerland, Turkey, Ukraine, and United Kingdom. So we have a list of countries which are exception in this case. So Andorra, Kosovo, Liechtenstein, Cyprus, and microstates like San Marino, Vatican are excluded from our research due to lack of data. The research is conducted for the period between 2007 to 2021. Basically, it was interesting for us to make this research, as it is a period which had multiple crises. Basically, it included also the financial debt and the pandemic as well. Also, by the crisis, we had also recession periods. Basically, different points of view that we can see in a state. So all our indicators were affected and changed. Starting with descriptive statistics. So as we can see, we have 600 observations for each variable. The higher education enrollment, the average is 67.89%. As we have 40 different countries with many differences across them, we have wide variation. The Gini index, basically the ratio of income inequality gives us an average of 31.73. Poverty gives, as well, we have here varying degrees of poverty, which in average gives us 16.06%. GDP per capita, again, we have different results with the average of around 30.571. The unemployment and inflation have also significant variability across countries, as we mentioned, because we have 40 different countries with different changing variables. More information about the correlation metrics between our variables. So we have the higher education enrollment, the poverty ratio, the Gini index, GDP per capita, unemployment, and inflation. As you can see, between higher education enrollment and poverty, we have weak negative correlations, which is negative 0.21. And with the Gini index, which is negative 0.08, which this gives us basically the evidence that we have loose link between poverty and inequality. Poverty is strongly correlated with income inequality. So we have the indicator of 0.53. It is negatively correlated to GDP per capita, which is negative 0.20. This gives us the evidence that higher poverty is associated with greater inequality, but also a lower GDP. The Gini index and unemployment are positively correlated. As we can see, 0.39 is our indicator. And this basically gives us the linkage between higher inequality with higher unemployment. GDP per capita is strongly negatively correlated with unemployment, negative 0.43, which shows us that higher GDP corresponds to lower unemployment. Inflation, lastly, shows us that a weak positive correlation is existing with higher education enrollment, and negative correlation with poverty, which is negative 0.28. Again, more explanation about our three models. So firstly, we had the effect of higher education enrollment on the Gini index. So we have, as you can see in our model, the Gini represents the Gini index for the country at a specific point in time. AG represents the higher education enrollment ratio. Unemployment, IT basically is the unemployment rate, and inflation is the inflation IT is the inflation rate. The parameter beta 0 is the intercept, while beta 1, beta 2, and beta 3 represent the coefficients of the independent variables. The second model is the effect of higher education enrollment on the GDP per capita. So we have GDP PC denoting the GDP per capita, with alpha 0 is the intercept, alpha 1, alpha 2, and alpha 3 are the coefficients for the independent variables. The third model basically gives us the effect of higher education enrollment on poverty head count ratio. We have poverty, which is represented and basically the model shows the intercept represented by YO, while Y1, Y2, and Y3 are coefficients corresponding to the independent variables. So going to our findings, the first finding basically is the first finding basically gives us the relationship between higher education enrollment and the Gini index. Higher education enrollment has no statistically significant effect on the Gini index across all models. Unemployment, on the other side, shows a strong positive effect on income inequality, implying that higher unemployment rates are associated with increased inequality. Inflation is also positively linked to inequality at a 5% significance level in the fixed and random effects models. Sorry. The second model, basically, the OLS model suggests that a 1% increase in higher education enrollment is associated with a significant decrease in GDP per capita, but the fixed effects and random effects models do not find this relationship statistically significant. There is a strong negative relationship between unemployment and GDP per capita. As unemployment rises, GDP per capita falls substantially. The OLS model also shows a negative effect of inflation on GDP, but this is not confirmed in the fixed and random effects models. For the third model, we have the impact of higher education enrollment on poverty headcount ratio. A 1% increase in higher education enrollment significantly reduces poverty across all models. Unemployment is positively associated with poverty, but the relationship is weaker in the fixed effects model. Basically, it is evident that inflation has a significant negative impact on poverty, especially in the OLS model. According to the Hausman test results, the random effects model is preferred. Basically, no correlation between the individual effects and regressors in the model. The second model shows...
Edita, I'm sorry
Yes?
to remind you that your time is over, so maybe you can conclude in
Yes,
a couple
I
of
will
minutes.
wrap up.
Yeah.
I will
you.
wrap up in 2 minutes. The second model, we have the fixed effects model, which is more appropriate, and the third one is also favoring the fixed effects model. We have, as I mentioned in the beginning, we had limitation of the study. Data availability varies across countries. The panel data approach enables richer analysis, but cannot fully establish causal relationships. There is, if future research is conducted, it could benefit from using longitudinal studies, basically to explore these causal relationships more directly. In conclusion, the impact of higher education, basically there is no significant relationship with the Gini index, so it has only limited short-term effects on income inequality. There is positive and significant effect on GDP per capita, basically highlighting that the education's role, the important role of education for driving economic growth. There is negative and significant impact on poverty headcount ratio. Again, showing the importance of education in poverty alleviation. We had our control variables, which are unemployment and inflation in our case. As a conclusion, we would give that higher education enrollment contributes significantly. It's very important to have higher education enrollment for economic growth and poverty reduction. While the relationship with inequality remains less clear, and there are suggested complementary policies as future research. As I mentioned, to explore causal relationships through longitudinal studies, and to have control for additional confounding factors to basically enhance the explanation of the findings. Lastly, we have a short list of references. This would be extended, and everything will be included in our final paper. Thank you all for your attention. I tried to wrap up everything in a short presentation, but there is really so much to talk about. The importance of higher education on different variables.
Well, thank you very much, Edita Mustafa. I would like to thank you and your colleagues who have worked and written this paper, and I'm hoping that we can read in more detail, as you have just said, in the final maybe paper that will be published by the organizers, maybe in the near future. But I think it is raising a lot of relevant questions like access to higher education or lack of access to higher education and development, and also poverty reduction. Now we come to the last paper of our session, which will be presented by Mohammed Fatih Aksaraylı. The title of his paper is Evaluation of University Reactions to the Gaza Genocide from the Perspective of Global Citizenship. Fatih, you have got 15 minutes and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Küçükcan. Honorable Chair and participants, I'm Mohammed Fatih Aksaraylı from Süleyman Demirel University, Turkey, and glad to be part of this conference. My paper is Evaluations of University Reactions to the Gaza Genocide from the Perspective of Global Citizenship. Yes, global citizenship has gained greater importance alongside globalization. The ease and speed of communication channels increased global human mobility and also migration. People carry their differences, cultures, and beliefs personally or through communication tools. Global citizenship idea regarding these differences as values, which has become increasingly significant. Global citizenship education emphasizes the following points. Freedom of expression and thought is essential. Critical thinking is not a crime. It is noble to respond to injustice. The importance of demanding transparency and accountability in governance. Politicians should uphold consistent policies, both domestically and internationally. The leaders and politicians become responsible for their decisions, not only for their citizens, but also for global citizens. Value of rising individuals who respect different cultures, are sensitive to global issues, and aim to contribute to humanity's shared heritage. The virtue of caring both moral and political concerns for other people, especially for infants and children. The significance of sacrificing personal comfort for the well-being of humanity. The feeling of responsibility in the face of poverty, unemployment, pollution, global warming, displacement, and genocide. A sense of responsibility towards all living beings, the feasibility of environmentally sustainable development paths and technologies, the necessity of social, ethical, and moral considerations of scientific research and internet developments. Student protests against the Gaza genocide. It is estimated that under the reason of intervening against Hamas, Israel has caused the deaths of 12,000 women, 17,000 children, 1,000 infants, and 34,000 civilians to date. The images and news circulated, especially on social media, move people by expressing social consciousness and empathy. These conflicts wound not only the region, but also the global community that views the situation with humanitarian empathy. The university student protests not only respond to Israel's attacks on Gaza, but also serve as a reaction to Israel's long-standing policies of oppression and occupation against the Palestinian people. The initial purpose of these students was to protest their universities' silence and inactions regarding to Gaza genocide. University students began organizing protests on their campus and in the city centers to support the Palestinian people. In particular, anti-Israel demonstrations initiated by students at Columbia University in April, driven by their moral compass and awareness as global citizens, spread throughout the United States and across Europe. The most active protests appear in top-tier universities with high research activity. The protesters are demanding from universities that force Israel to agree to ceasefire, recognize the conflict in Gaza as genocide, condemn the destruction of all universities and hospitals in Gaza, as well as the expansion of Israel universities through the occupation of Palestinian lands. To cut financial ties with companies connected to Israel and its war industry and refuse research from them. Universities refrain from investing their large funds in Israeli companies and adopt ethical investment policies. Universities sever ties with all institutions linked to Israel and disclose their connections. Outcomes of protests: many universities called the police to the campus. As a result, more than 3,000 arrests were made. Some rectors facing university senate votes of no confidence. Certain academics and students were detained. Some academics contracts were not renewed, and some academic students were dismissed. Unlike typical police responses to peaceful demonstrations in the US, those Gaza protests faced severe police intervention. Some universities have taken into account the demands of students. Some universities agreed to sever ties with companies linked to Israel. Others stated they would evaluate demands and consult with institutions responsible for overseeing investments. Some universities committed to establishing new centers to raise awareness on the Palestinian issue. Others agreed to disclose their investments and adopt ethical investment policies. Some universities took no action, but allowed protest camps to continue, while others promised to grant amnesty to detained students, provide legal support, and offer make-up exams for those who missed it. Conclusion: the Israel-Palestine conflict has evoked profound awareness and a sense of solidarity among student communities worldwide. This protest has not only brought regional policies into question, but also opened discussions on global peace and justice perspectives. The freedom of expression and protest, which are two pillars of Western democracy, faced a serious test. It has spread the belief that the positive achievements of American and Western civilization, along with humanism, apply solely to their societies. The notion that hostility towards Israel's policies and their leadership is not anti-Semitism has emerged. And finally, it has highlighted that combating terrorism must not escalate into genocide, as children and infants are not terrorists. Thank you for your attention.
Well, thank you, Fatih, for your interesting paper, which highlights the reaction of the universities in the face of Gaza conflict, the Israeli aggression to the people of Palestine. I think this is a very important beginning of the discussion related to the functions of the universities in today's world in regard to the global developments. And I think you have also highlighted the limits of freedom of speech and association at the universities. But still, I think when we look at the various universities in US, Europe, and elsewhere, we see that the young students, actually young brains, are well aware of the situation in Gaza, and they are trying to be the voice of the voiceless. Edward Said was at Columbia University, and you would remember that he was also an activist academic, and he was raising the voice of the Palestinians, and actually he described the intellectual as the voice of the voiceless, and the universities are supposed to be the case, not only the voice of the voices in Gaza, but elsewhere as well. I think we have also seen that there are some limits with regard to the freedom of speech and administration when it comes to the Jewish lobby in US, because they have lobbied some of the universities like Harvard, Columbia, and others, and the presidents had to leave, as you would remember, because of the pressure. That's why I think we also need to look at this aspect of it as well, that universities are supposed to be the bastion of freedom of speech and expression. Well, thank you very much for your participation and for your papers. I would like to thank Aga Adil, Fatih, Edita Mustafa, and her friends, as well as other participants who followed us throughout the session. I would like to thank also 19 Mayıs University for organizing such an interesting and broad, I think, seminar and symposium, because when I look at the program, I think there are many other sessions that we also would like to now, I think, follow today and tomorrow. I believe that I think we will submit our final papers sometime in the future. I also believe that the organizers will contact us about the writing styles and the timetables, etc. So we look forward to reading your papers in full, which will also, I think, open new areas of discussions. I think our host is here. There is someone who is here, but I cannot see his face or name or her. If they would like to make any comment or any announcement, the organizer is welcome to do so. Otherwise, I am going to close the session. I'm sorry that we don't have time for discussions, for questions and answers, because already we are 10 minutes over our discussion time. Okay, there is no response coming from the organizer. That means we are at the end of our session. I would like to thank all of you for your participation and for your contribution. Thank you, and I hope to see you in a different venue in a different time. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, take care of yourself.